and we're greatly looking forward to Brian Ballinger's talk, Three Woods and a Pond. Before we start, can I just apologise for the cancellation of our January talk, which was due to a last-minute technical problem. The good news is that the talk is rescheduled to take place in a fortnight's time on Tuesday, the 23rd of February. So we look forward to that, and Ros Rankin will talk then about the pathologist and the botanist helping the police with their inquiries. Tonight, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Brian, who's in Dundee. He's IBG member who needs no introduction. He's the BSBI recorder for VC 106 East Ross. In June, COVID restrictions permitting, we look forward to botanising with Brian in Muirvord as part of the Urban Flora of Scotland project. If you've got any questions during his talk, you can type them into the chat box. So I think over to you, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Audrey is going to kindly work the slide projector because my upload is very slow. So I think we could just start, please, Audrey, if that's possible.
Yeah, can I just ask everyone else to mute their mics, please? Right. There we go.
Well, in 1997, my wife and I decided we might like to buy a little piece of woodland just to have and sort of enjoy for no really logical reason. But I sort of started looking. It was really quite hard to find anything then. There were huge estates for £1 million and not much else. But somehow we ended up with 4 for an even more inexplicable reason. I've only got 3 of them now, but it's been good fun. So next slide, please. So this is the map. It's a very old map. I see it's got the old railway lines pre-beaching on. I didn't notice that until today. But these are the woods. Brownie Wood in Fife, which I'll talk about first. Then Dam Pond, which I no longer own. Garrick Wood, which many of you will have visited. And Tarrell Wood in Caithness, which I don't think any of you will have visited. So there are 4 of them. And we'll start with Brownie Wood and end with Garrick Wood, actually. So next, please. So Brownie Wood was part of a local estate. It's only 3 miles from my house in Dundee as the crow flies, over the other side of the Tay, though. And this estate was in financial difficulties, as happens sometimes, so they sold off lots of little bits, including this one, which we bought in 1998. It's an old mixed plantation. Next slide, please. And here it is on the survey map. You can see Brownie Wood marked in the white thing there, and it's quite near the Tay. You can see the Tay up in the far left corner by the village of Goldry, which is really a Dundee commuting village. Next, please. And these are the old maps. I was interested in looking at the history of it. The Roy map for the 18th century is the map that is the best guide we've got to ancient woodland in Scotland. And it takes a lot of puzzling as to whether Brownie Wood is on it or not. Given a bit of imagination, if you go straight down from M of map, you see there's a kind of squiggle in between those 2 white bits. That's the village of Gallery, which is now Goldry, and just above it, there's a little fuzzy bit, which just may or may not be Brownie Wood. Anyway, next on the next half of it, no, sorry, back again. On the next half, you can see the 19th century one. It's by the B of Brownie there. So it's definitely there on the 19th century map. Next, please, we can go on there. So this is a view from Law Hill in Dundee, and Brownie Wood is very much on the skyline. You can see it's up above the Brownie Wood sign there. It's that lot of woodland up there. And you don't realize that you get these places. You sort of have a landscape responsibility because it's very much on the Dundee skyline on the Fife coast. This area was very bare in the 18th century on the old drawings. Next, please. And this is the view from the entrance to the wood, which I own right down to the road, actually. That gate is irrelevant. And this is my biggest oak, which was under great threat from the power line people. The power line, you see, I've got a power line coming over there, and they're terrified. The good people of Galtree are going to have their electricity cut off if my oak falls on it. And we had a big battle, but then we managed to keep it in the end. Now they do come and chop my cherries, the cherries in flower there, which is all right because it keeps an area fairly open. Next, please. And this is a view from the other side. It has fine views all around this wood. It's quite rich agricultural land, although the wood itself is on rather poor quality land. And I have a farmer neighbour who has a biomass plant, which is making gas and feeding the gas into the gas main. I didn't know people did that actually, but I've got his water supply in my wood, and I let him take out a couple of ash trees. And I said I didn't really want the wood, I couldn't do anything with it, but so he put my ash trees in his biomass plant to make gas. So fair enough, I suppose, all in a good cause. Next, please. Now it's a mixed plantation. There's quite a lot of pine and larch actually, but the trees that really love this wood are beech and sycamore. Now, okay, well, they're not truly native up here, but my heart warms a bit to them these days as all the native trees seem to be dying off. Many Fife woods have got this band of beech along the edge of them. It's a very exposed site, actually. So on the ridge, we get 100-mile-an-hour gales. And beech seeds like mad. You can see down at the bottom there, it's seeding like mad. And sycamore also love this wood. We used to chop it out. I've sort of just given up on that. I just let it carry on. I think in the end, it's going to turn into a beech sycamore wood with some birch and so on. Next, please. But there's a selection of other trees. Cherry laurel, now that's planted because this wood was a so-called sporting wood with pheasants. In fact, when we first bought it, it has a pheasant pen in it, which we didn't renew the contract because it was a mess, so they weren't offering to pay us much. But anyway, they planted cherry laurel. Holly seeds all through the wood. It rarely has berries on, that one did. And there's quite a lot of birch trees, quite a lot of seedlings, but this is an older one with birch brackets on, and a hole, which is a woodpecker nest hole, which comes there every year. And rowan, quite a bit of rowan, but it does get chewed by the deer, rather. Next, please. Next, please. There's a lot of honeysuckle in this wood. I have never seen a wood with as much honeysuckle. It's all through it. It's not every forester's friend I know, but I like it anyway. And particularly on the edge of the wood, it flowers magnificently in the late summer. So there's a lovely view and smell. Next, please. And there are patches of bluebells in the wood, which a lot of them are native. It's a narrow bell and a one-sided inflorescence. At the top end, I do have a patch of bluebells that has some Spanish influence. And I do ethnic cleansing there. I'm afraid every year I go round pulling out the ones I don't approve of. But of course, you know, these bees are very promiscuous and they come around carrying pollen. So, you know, it's hard to get away a bit of Spanish bluebell. And this is an orange tip butterfly. Of course, it's a female, so it hasn't got an orange tip, but it is orange tip, which came, they weren't always there, but they appeared some years ago now. Next, please. And the selection of some of the usual wildflowers. There's a celandine, the Carey burner, which changed its name, of course. And wood sorrel, oxalis, which spreads all through the wood, it loves it. And dog violet, viola, and also enchanter's nightshade. And I think it's the species enchanter's nightshade that we have in a few patches there. So next, please. And digitalis, foxglove, particularly where the wood has cleared itself or been cleared, masses of it there. And green alkanet, of course, is an alien really, but I think it is. Yes. But of course, it's got blue flowers, hence its name, green alkanet, just to confuse us all. And tuberous comfrey, quite a lot at the bottom, and Stachys sylvatica, hedge woundwort. Quite a lot of big select. There's just a few other things we get, fairly common things really. Next, please. I do not like this very much. Actually, I mean, it's quite an attractive plant. It wasn't there when we bought the wood. I have a horrible feeling it came in on our boots from somewhere, perhaps from Easter Ross, because there's quite a lot of it up here, up in Easter Ross. I keep forgetting where I am actually. But I do have to chop it back a bit because it's not all that common in Fife, but certainly in Easter Ross, quite a lot of invasive patches of it, really, aren't there? And they're more common than the native butterbur, actually. But so, although it flowers early and it looks quite nice, so I mustn't be too hard on it. Next, please. Well, when we bought the wood, there was this quarry which was used as an agricultural dump, as so often they were, and it was half a mile from the road, and we laboriously carried all this stuff slowly to the road and then to the tip. Slowly we cleared it, apart from one tractor lid, which is not in that picture actually, which was just too big to shift. Actually, I might have thrown away some quite good bits of historical farm equipment, but anyway, I didn't. I kept it, it all went out. And once we cleared the quarry, it had some good rock exposure. The wood is mainly on volcanic rock, andesite, which got lots of little holes in from the volcanic gas. Although down below, it's mainly sandstone. So this is a picture of North Fife and Dundee, actually. There's masses, there are these volcanic masses poking through. And then there's a seasonal pond in this quarry, which fills up with calitrichae. I always worry slightly about being too definitive. I mean, it's like calitrichae stagnalis, but the referees get very fussy about calitrichae identification. And frog spawn. The frogs live a dangerous life here because this pond dries up. So it's a touch and go for the frogs. Next, please. Next, please. Thank you. And then there's a selection of fungi. I'll just show you one of the more dramatic ones. This one that stinkhorn, which you smell some way off, and it attracts the flies because it smells like rotting flesh. And here they are, being very frustrated, but then they carry the spores all over the place. Next, please. The squirrels. Now, this is on the front line between red and grey squirrels, and it's still on the front line actually. Some of the locals have, some of the other estates have actually been controlling the greys a bit, but I've seen fewer squirrels in the last year or two, and I don't think the reds are doing terribly well in this area, although nationally I think people are doing better. So like Dundee, this is on the front line in the red-grey battle between the squirrels. I haven't got a decent picture, I'm afraid. That's the best picture I managed to get. Next, please. And then there's a big badger set. And again, I haven't got a picture of a badger. Sorry, folks. I'm not terribly good at sitting out in the dark being attacked by midges. I have seen them, but not got a decent picture. It's a huge set, and it sort of moves around on a very typical soft soil north slope. And there's an outlying set too, where bad-tempered males get sent off to cool off a bit sometimes. Next, please. And the fence post at the top is very much a home for ladybirds, which gather there in winter. They'll be there now. The seventh spot in that picture, though I get other ones too, and that's a baby, I think, on the right there. So it's very much a home for ladybirds on the top fence post. Next, please. When Barbara was alive, we did rather more work in the wood than I'm doing these days, I'm afraid. And there she is, having done battle with a sycamore, which was in the wrong place. But I'm afraid I now keep the paths clear and remove a few seedlings I don't like, pick up litter, and that's about it. Next, please. And we've got a lot of bird boxes. The school children, the local primary school, put up a lot of bird boxes under the guidance of the ranger. I can't imagine the young children put those boxes up. I'm sure the ranger must have done it. Anyway, we've got a lot of bird boxes and people come around and check what's nesting in them. Next, please. And then I never authorized barbecues. In fact, I once refused because I was worried they were going to set fire to the pine. But nevertheless, barbecues have happened. And where they've done it, actually, it's not going to set fire to anything. So it doesn't worry me too much. But the trouble with owning woods, you never know what goes on, actually. You never know. The children make little houses in the wood. And again, it's good. You know, things children used to do, don't do as much now. I wasn't so happy about a tree house. I worried about the safety of it, but I've not seen one of those for a while. So this wood is much used by locals, dog walkers from the village and other people. So, you know, it's very nice, it is used. And they look after it, they pick up the litter. You know, it's very little litter. Next, please. But there is dumping at the entrance, not by the locals, I'm sure. Fortunately, so far, it has been mainly garden rubbish, which I can disperse I haven't had any large electrical goods dumped, but the danger of owning property on a road is that irresponsible people can dump. You see there, it's quite flowery around there, a lot of red campion, which flowers all year just about in the wood. Next, please. There is some wind blow. It's very exposed. And of course, these days, it is recommended that you, if you're working for conservation, you leave your dead wood lying. So quite suits me, being not the most energetic forester on earth. So I leave my dead wood lying, except when it's obstructing a path. And I remove small stuff myself. I'm afraid in my old age, I get a man to come and chop really big things across paths. And nice rides in these woods, actually, it's very pleasant walking. Next, please. Next, right. With deep regret, I have to inform you that I've sold this one. It was the first thing we bought, actually, in the beginning of 1998. And this is just north of Dundee. Again, you won't have been here, I don't think. It's 5 miles north. It's by far the smallest. It's just an old mill pond of an acre, and a small burn runs through it. The family were very determined not to inherit this from me, so I was under some pressure to sell it. Next, please. So there it is. It's that underdam pond. You see a little rectangular blue bit. That's it. That's all it is, I'm afraid. And it's on a road, which are pros and cons to that. And it's just 5 miles north of Dundee. Dundee is to the south, down the bottom there. Next, please. So there it is. There's the pond. Early-ish in the year, because the sycamore's in leaf, the willow's in leaf, but the ash isn't. And it's got Gallows Hill behind it. I failed to mention that Brownie, the last one we looked at, was also on Gallows Hill. So, you know, they were used to hang a lot of people around here, I think. Next, please. There's a lot of ash here, and I'm afraid some of it is not looking very happy. I think ash dieback has arrived, as it is arriving all over the place. I don't know whether there's much of it up north yet, but certainly in Tayside, it's coming apparent, which is sad, really. But this ash is losing leaves, and it's got lesions on its trunk. The other's not too bad yet. As I say, I sold it last year, so I haven't really inspected it recently. Next, please. And it's got rushes and willow. I think it might be Salix arbor. I always struggle a bit with that willow. They are slowly taking over part of the pond, because it's, you know, managing it for conservation. At least I was. They're nice to have. Next, please. And it's quite a home for birds. The coots dominate it. They really are very bossy birds, and they always nest there. But moor hens, sort of tucked away in the corner rather quietly. Tufted duck down at the bottom left are quite common there. Don't always nest, I don't think. And swans, they're very frequent, although they don't nest there anymore. I think we probably reduced the length of their runway for taking off. But those are baby coots in the background, by the way, not anything else. They're also herons and dapchicks and things like that. Next, please. And there are a lot of common flowers there. The knapweed, top left, Centaurea nigra, and the scabious, Nautia arvensis, which is much more common actually in Angus, and it is up in Easter Ross, where it's not all that common. And then lots of red campion, which flowers most of the year, and also the sweet Cicely, Merisodorata, which is there too, and quite a lot of other ones too. Next, please. This is Taphrina alni, the fungus that grows on older female cones. Now, it was hardly known in the UK until recently, but then it's either got more common or we've got more aware of it. Certainly, the Highland Biological Recording Group first noted it at Rallia, I think. That was first where I first saw it. But then you look, and it's all over the place, really. It's fungus on the cones of alder, but certainly it's in this wood. Next, please. And there are lots of other things. I say they're frogs. Somebody may correct me and tell me they're toads, but they're baby froglets. Or I'm not terribly good at telling baby frogs and baby toads. You get both here. We never moth trapped in the wood, but it does have day flying moths there. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ro. Yeah, I had wondered. I labelled them wrong. Looking at it again, I thought I might be wrong. Yes, indeed. And damselflies, and the commonest butterfly there is a ringlet, but there are lots of other ones too. It's a bit higher up than the last wood we looked at. I mean, it's about 500 feet above sea level here, in the foothills of the Sidlaw Hills, really, just north of Dundee. Next, please. When Barbara was alive, the management was rather more energetic. We have this sort of meadow area at the top, which we used to manage in sections. One we didn't cut at all. One we cut late in the year, and one we cut twice in the year, or Barbara cut, I'm afraid. But I'm afraid I just sort of kept the path open in more recent years. But the aim was actually to try and reduce the richness, to reduce the nettles and thistles, which do take over a bit sometimes. Next, please. The water level has varied somewhat. The water comes in via a land drain, which comes underneath fields and goes out underneath fields the other way. And the water got very low. There was a blockage further up the hill. The farmer said he was going to charge me for the repairs, but he never did actually, and it would have been debatable whether he should have. And it exposes the mud. Now, this pond is about 2.5 meters deep, and this mud is really very soft. It's very dangerous, actually. Actually, somebody died in it once. I think probably suicide. But it's really quite dangerous. And when somebody puts litter in a place like that, it really is an absolute pain to get it out. But there are other times when the water comes down the hill and the road is flooded. The road people have got very good at clearing the exits and entrances, the inflow and outflow. Once we'd found the outflow, they were threatening to bring a JCB in to break down the wall of the wood, but we did actually sort out the way to deal with it. So I've not owned it for the last year, so I don't know what's happened in the last year, but it had some heavy rain. I did get the drainage job done. The outflow pipe was cracked, so I got a contractor, and he started the job and then went away, and he left his digger there for 4 months. I thought I'd won a digger actually, but anyway, he finished the job finally, and so we have a nice new outflow pipe. Next, please. Again, I'm a victim of the outflow, of the inflow here, because at times there's a lot of poppleweed on Christmas, which is really quite nice to have. The curled pondweed, which is not the commonest one on earth. But then at other times, when I think he's putting more fertilizer on his fields up the hill, there's a mass of green algae, which I'm not so fond of. So you're very much the victim of your inflow. Next, please. And then being on the road, you're a victim, potential victim of the dumpers. I wish I put a higher fence. There is a fence, but it is possible to throw things over it. And these are some of the smaller things that have been dumped. There was a sofa dumped there once, and I was so cross I didn't remember to take a photo of it. But we had to put waders on and take hacksaws and chop it up and get it out. It was really very difficult. So I think that's the sort of thing that led the family to feel we might be better not owning this pond. It doesn't happen very often actually, but it is a hazard. Next, please. And then some other things get dumped, some living things. There was a poor little white rabbit and a black rabbit. Now the black rabbit just disappeared. I think it joined its happy wild friends. The white rabbit was not very well, and we took it to the SSPCA, and they thought it had myxomatosis and had to put it down, unfortunately. And then even less welcome were 3 terrapins. Terrapins are really quite hard to get rid of, actually. We had terrapins once, and nobody wants to take them, except we had some good friends. I don't know whether they remain good friends, but they agreed to take them off us for their children. We were so delighted to get rid of our terrapins from our house in Dundee, but somebody else couldn't get rid of their terrapins and dumped them in our pond. Maybe there are terrapins come back, actually. But anyway, they eat everything. And one of them came to grief. It had a hole in its shell. Now, whether a heron could do that, I don't know, but it found it dead with a hole in its shell anyway. Another one got its foot caught in a bird slide, and I found it dead. The other one just disappeared. So finally, I'm pleased to say that poor terrapins were no longer with us, pretty as they are. If you like that sort of thing anyway. Next, please. But last year, I sold the wood with great regret, and the new owner seems to have done absolutely nothing except put up a new sign, a danger, keep out property sign. But the owner who bought it, actually, the guy who's bought it, it just owns a small holding just down the hill, just where you can see over the fence there. And he keeps alpacas. I had a vision he was going to bring his alpacas in to graze the pond, but I suppose they might fall in. But of course, the other thing is you do own the outflow pipe all under the field. I have a feeling he really wanted to control the water supply to his small holding. I'm wondering why I bought it. Anyway, the family was so relieved I got rid of it. I regret it. I'm sorry to lose it. Next, please. And then we have Taro Woods. This is far up north in Caithness, which we bought for some reason. It was cheap to buy, and it had the Burner Windlass, it had the Wick River. It is 80 miles from where I live when I'm in East of Ross, so I don't get there all that often. And it's big, and it's one of those woodlands that should not have been planted. It's one of the sort of, these sort of ones where you've got a grant to plant it, and then if you're clever, you've got a grant to take it off again too. But these people that, Hurricane Higgins and Terry Wogan and things put them there. It's not in the flow country, actually. It's closer to the sea than the flow country. The soil's a bit richer. But it's in two bits. And I sold the smaller south bit last year, with the one with the frontage of the Wick River, because it was hard to get into, actually. Next, please. So there it is. Wick is just off the map, down on the bottom right hand side, and it's about 4 miles from Wick, 5 miles from Wick. And Terrell North and Terrell South, as you see, are separated by a railway line and a road. I don't own all that patch. I own most of Terrell South, but Terrell North, I only own the north bit around the burn of Windlass. You can see the burn going through the blue line there. Next, please. And this is it from the air. Terrell South is that bit labelled. That's the bit I sold. It has a frontage on the Wick River, which is really very nice. But I was pleased to sell it to my neighbour, who has bought that little bit with the hole in the middle, just immediately north. And he's a professional guy from Glasgow who has set up a croft there. He's building a house, and he's running a woodland business, a wood business. So, but he's bought Terrell South. I was very pleased to sell it to a neighbour again, actually. And then there's an area of Clearfell, which I don't own. It was Clearfell because a pipeline was going through, which is bought by another amateur, actually, who has been trying to plant things, and they've all been eaten by the pine weevil. And Terrell North, as labelled, I own most of that, not the little bit at the far end. And then a typical Caithness landscape, it's so different because it's so flat and open and windswept. Next, please. And it has this burn of Windlass going through the north. This is Terrell North now, the one I still own, which is an attraction. It goes about half a mile through, very, very flowery, and it's quite a wide area between the Sitka spruce and the lodgepole pine, the rather unglamorous trees that were planted. Next, please. And I'm the proud owner of 2 shooting towers. I had never climbed this shooting tower, I just did not feel safe. But that's my granddaughter, who age 19, who went up with absolutely no problem at all where we visited last summer. And of course, the roe deer, which are my grazing, which people no doubt used to shoot from this tower. As you see, there's lodgepole pine on the left and some Sitka spruce on the right there. Next, please. And this is Loch Windlass, which Triple SI, which I don't own, but it's immediately adjacent. Next, please. And there are lots of sedges in Terrell Wood. The Carex vesicaria bladder sedge was a new Berkshire County record for Caithness, actually. It was, at the time, a new northern limit for this species in Britain. Unfortunately, or fortunately, somebody found a site further north, so it's lost its glorious position. And then bottle sedge, Caryx widespread, and greater tussock sedge, Caryx pediculator. There's quite a lot of it. It's not all that common up there, so it's nice to have all these patches of that. And then white sedge, Caryx curta at the bottom. Next, please. And this is at its northern limit. Not a very good picture, I'm afraid. It's difficult stuff to photograph. Not a very dramatic plant. I believe duckweed, Zemna trisulca, which is also in the Loch Windlass, but it's just a bit further north here in some of my drainage ditches. How it got here, I do not know. It's rare elsewhere. I mean, I've only found it once in Easter Ross, and it's not really terribly common in the north at all. Anyway, northern limit in Britain. Next, please. I'm afraid lodgepole pine is not doing very well. I think it's got dothroma, which the fungus disease, which is which is really widespread in particularly lodgepole, but also in Austrian pine, and certainly in the north there. There's more of it. In the last 2 or 3 years, this patch of lodgepole has been very affected, and it's dying. I've just left it actually, but it's still seeding very well, as you can see on the right. It's setting seeds. Next, please. And here it is again, and you see trees are coming up in it. There's a birch tree there, and spruce is coming up, and ferns growing up. So I'm just seeing what happens. I mean, nobody's ordered me to clear it. I think about if I was a commercial wood, I would, but I'm not running it as a commercial wood, and it'd be a big hassle to clear it. So I'm just leaving it meantime anyway. But it's a problem. Well, many of these tree diseases are affecting us here, aren't they? Really. Next, please. And there are bits of willow around now. This area was probably never heavily forested. Certainly looking at the soil samples in peat samples in the Loch Windlass, there seem to be scattered willow and birch, and not dense forestry ever. So it was probably not really appropriate to turn this into a forested area. Anyway, there are a few remnants of what was there before. Next, please. And then there's a selection of fairly typical wetland plants, the Silicea aquaticus, marsh ragwort, and Cartha marsh marigold, and marsh woundwort, Stachys pilustris, and lots and lots of other things. It's really very flowery along the Burner Windlass in summer. Next, please. And there's quite a lot of bog myrtle there, which with a lovely smell in the rides and so on, as there is in the surrounding heath, which is quite a feature there, really. Next, please. And orchids, these are the common ones, really. The heath-spotted orchid on the top there, Dactyriza maculata, and Dactyriza purpurella, northern marsh orchid on the bottom. I've also seen lesser twayblade in there, but I'm afraid I didn't get a picture of it. Next, please. And lots of Narthecium, bog asphodel, which is the county flower of Rossshire, of course, but here it is in Caithness. It's very attractive plant, this one, I always think. There's quite a lot of that there. Next, please. And then a lot of hairstyle cotton grass, which flowers incredibly early. I mean, I see the flowers on this at the end of February up there. Of course, it's you don't really associate the flowers of it with the fruits, but it makes a sort of white show all through there. Cotton grass. Next, please. And then there are slime molds, a lot of them actually. I must confess, I have not buckled down to identifying slime molds, the sort of thing one should do, because I think they're really understudied. They're these strange protozoan-like things which people debate just what they are that move around. They're very strange creatures, but they're quite attractive in their funny old way and their bright colours. Next, please. And then there, what are probably water voles. I showed Rose some pictures of some of these sites. I'm not sure. It probably wasn't the one I showed her actually. She thought it probably was water vole holes and nibbles. And I've never seen one there. But of course, I don't think the mink got here very much. So I think they were better protected up here. This is by the bird of Windlass, of course, running through Tyrol North. Next, please. Selection of butterflies. Large heath. It's relatively common in the north, actually. And quite common things, common blue otherwise. And meadow brown, I see lots and lots of those. I saw them there this year. The Red Admiral, that's on the steps of the shooting tower, actually. And other ones too. I can't remember how many now. Next, please. Day flying moths. I'm not totally confident of that northern Spanish identification. Looking at it again, I think it should have a more of a double indentation on the bottom of that central bar, but I don't know what else it is. I put that label on it, but I have slight doubts. Open to correction. And then barred straw and barred red, common heath. These are all day flyers because we never moth trapped up there actually. The common heath, of course, is one you see all over the place, don't you, in the uplands and the heaths. It's up here, up there. I'm down here and you're up there. Yeah, right. Next, please. And then caterpillars, lots of them. Muslin moth, emperor. Never saw an adult emperor in that wood. I mean, I see them occasionally elsewhere. Tiger and oak or northern egger, I think. So quite a lot going on there, but I say we never really studied them in a very organized way. Next, please. We did embark, when Barbara was alive, on trying to clear a bit of the spruce. We looked at the RSPB management of their woodlands, you know, where they're chopping it down and restoring heath. But we never really buckled down to it. Some of this stuff was also awfully difficult to chop down. But generally, you know, it's kept this wide open sort of glen in between the lines of trees there along this burn of Windlass. So it's still an attractive area. Next, please. And then there's Tyrol South, which I've now sold. I sold it because I was having increasing trouble getting into it, actually, because you either had to walk about 2 miles over a muddy field full of cows and full of boulders. It really was quite a battle. Or you had to illegally cross the railway line. The fine is now quoted £1,000 over a very wobbly fence, and I decided I wasn't going to get in there. I mean, it's quite a long way to drive there anyway. So with regret, I sold it last year. Next, please. And this is the one with the Wick River, which is you see otters here, and it's also a salmon river. There must be good salmon fishers actually. I discovered I did not own the salmon rights. I discovered that afterwards. Not that I want to fish for salmon, but the salmon fishermen fish from that hut, and they sometimes kindly came and cut my gorse back for me, which I was very grateful for actually. There's Carex aquatilis on the other side of the river there, water sage, which is a bit special. Unfortunately, it's not in my wood, or not in the wood I used to own. But that's the Wick River. Next, please. And on the bank of it, it's very flowery later in the year, valerian and knapweed and philipendula and so on. So it's a very flowery riverbank. Next, please. And looking to the south, it's wind farm land here. And these wind farms have sort of grown up. Actually, it's a flight of geese too there, isn't it? I didn't notice that, so I put this picture up after setting up this talk. Next, please. But it's also, there's the Wick Express. It's on the express railway line to Wick. And this sort of cuts the wood off a bit, really. 3 trains a day each way. Next, please. one thing I do regret is losing my greater sundew, actually, which is quite widespread in the Highlands, although it does make the red data book not so common elsewhere. But I regret losing that. I've got the more common sundew elsewhere, but not in the other part of the wood, I don't think. Next, please. But then I put it up for sale, and the woodland people, the sale people, actually put the notice by the other bit of wood, because of course it was so difficult for them to get into the south bit of wood, which I've sold. They put it on this gate, and this is the clear fell, which is owned by another guy who's had all his planted trees eaten by pine weevil since he tried to replant. It's a difficult life managing these woods for some people. Next, please. So this is familiar territory to many of you. Garrick Wood, which near Payne on the A9, 86 acres, bought in 1998. Pine and birch with wet and dry heath bog, exotics next to Carl Rossi Triple SI. Next, please. And there it is on the A9, Garrick Wood labelled. And there down on the right is Fern Station, where I've got a flat, which I haven't managed to get to for a little while actually. And it's adjacent to Carl Rossi Woods Triple SI, and it's near Tane. Next, please. And this is Fern Station, where I've got the upper flat in the station house. And this is the meadow, which has got the broom rape in it and orchids. It's not really, it's just showing the oxeye daisy here, but the broom rape, I think you probably just see it actually, it's hard to see. But when I got here this year, July the 3rd, there I could come up, the broom rape was still there, but the orchids, Northern Marsh and common twayblade were just about gone. Next, please. And Garrick Wood has an entrance directly on the A9, which has pros and cons to it. It's easy to get into. It makes it easy for other people to get into too. I've taken the lock off this gate now because it was a bit debatable under the access code. There is another way in. But anyway, the path has got so narrow with the gorse, you couldn't take a vehicle in anyway now. And that was a snowy day we were there, wasn't it? Goodness me. It must have been 11 years ago, I think. Next, please. And it's got lots of pine. The pine, it's debatable. There was certainly a lot of planting of continental stock pine around this area. I think when people looked at it, they felt it was a bit intermediate between the native sort of strain and the continental strain, but I'm not sure it's quite clear. The heather there is dying, and we do get regular runs of heather beetle, I think, which actually does knock the heather back, and heather can get a bit overwhelming sometimes. Next, please. And it's adjacent to Carl Rossi Woods Triple SI, which was up for sale about 3 years ago, 200 acres. I was tempted, but no, I mustn't buy it. I didn't buy it. And a local from Tane who was making a real go of it bought it, so I'm very pleased, really. But of course, if you're a Triple SI, then you do have to obey all the rules. So there are pros and cons to owning a Triple SI. But it's a nice wood, actually. It's a bit like Garrick Wood, but a bit less knocked around. Next, please. And then in the drier bits, there's quite a lot of birch, is the other major tree there, really, and some bracken. Now, bracken can be invasive. It's not taking over big areas of the wood because a lot of it's too wet, actually, apart from anything else. But there's quite a lot of bracken in places. Next, please. And then it's a wet wood, as those of you that have been there will remember. The paths almost never dry up. They do occasionally, but they really are a real old squelch. And it's a bog woodland, a lot of it. And it's got a lot of sedges. That's star sedge, Carex echinata, down bottom there. There's a lot of green ribbed sedge too. They're common sedges, most of them, but lots and lots of sedges. Next, please. And then there was some juniper there, just a few, and we did take cuttings from it as well, and some of it's taken out off all right. And then there are willows, which some of them are a bit hard to be certain what they are. Actually, we have got eared willow and some creeping willow and some hybrid sort of, I don't know what willow, quite a lot of it really. So, but a lot of willow, it seeds a lot. It's not nice though, nice. Next, please. And then various exotic trees, some more welcome than others. Suga heterophila, is a bit invasive, of course, but not invasive there. There's just a small patch of it, western hemlock. It doesn't really spread much. I'm pleased to say. On the right there, that's Serbian spruce, a very elegant tree. I mean, it's an introduction. But a small patch of it. It's not all that widespread, actually. Very elegant, long, tall tree. Picea armorica. And then on the bottom left, Sitka spruce, which some was planted there and then taken off, but they're remnants. And again, I do chop seedlings of that. I don't encourage it. It likes it. It loves it in Scotland, doesn't it? It's joined our flora, I'm afraid. And then Abies procera, a noble fir, just a little patch. It's a very elegant tree with enormous cones. But mainly it's pine, birch, and willow. Next, please. And there are areas of fairly open land there with some drier heath with lots of heather. For a while, I was trying to keep this more open. I was taking out seedling pine and birch, and then I just sort of stopped. I'm afraid I'm just letting it gently move towards woodland. It doesn't move so fast, but of course I do have grazing. I have roe deer and red deer. I think my neighbour is pretty sure that some people have been poaching. Deer numbers are down, and I think there's some illegal shooting going on. He's sort of up in arms about it. I like some grazing. On the other hand, I don't want everything chewed to bits, because they do selectively chew rowan and anything like that. So the pros and cons to having lots of deer. Next, please. And then there are bogs, and this is with lots of bog asphodel. This is the biggest bog, but there are lots of other patches too. I do take seedling pines out of this. I'm not sure they do very well anyway, but I do take them out. Next, please. And then later in the year, it turns into a mass of cotton grass. This is the other cotton grass, I think, Eriophrum angustifolium. And there's also some bottle sedge on the left there. I haven't found anything really rare in here. I'm always hoping to find something special. Next, please. And there's lots of lichens and mosses, which I'm afraid I'm not going to go into because I'm not up to speed really. But we got Brian Coppens to look at some of our lichens. He found one or two rarities, but that's just Cladonia. We have a lot of different ones. And a lot of sphagnum, but it's such a boggy wood. Barbara did make a list of them, and I'm afraid I haven't really buckled down to the identification of mosses lately. Next, please. And lots of fungi. Chanterelles, of course, the bottom there, and orange peel and false morel, but there are lots of other ones. We did get some issues with people gathering fungi commercially. I was told that there were some people with boxes taking fungi out. Now, I wasn't happy about that. I've not been seeing this in the last year, but of course, there are more people doing foraging now, and some people do it commercially. I think, of course, some Eastern Europeans have always done this. It's always debatable how much damage it does, but really, everyone's happy for people to take some, but not to take the lot. And I'm uneasy about commercial gathering in my wood. Next, please. And then a variety of flowers, the more common sundew, Drosera rotundifolia. And then there's an area of chickweed, wintergreen, which is neither a chickweed nor a wintergreen, trying to reappear. And then Aphelium sylvaticum, which appears on the forest track there. It's actually red datable because of its diminishing in England, but it's quite common on forest tracks in Scotland. But there we are. It came. I might come on our car wheels, which appeared after we got there actually. And then the Stag's Horn club moss on the bottom right there, again a forest track thing, which is here and there on forest tracks in the wood. Comes and goes a bit, really. Next, please. Then creeping lady tresses, orchid. This is actually very widespread in this wood. It's funny, it was a while before we found it there, but now I find its leaves all over the place in the wood. It doesn't always flower. Of course, this is one that's really very widespread in the pine woods of northeast Scotland. I mean, in Easter Ross, it's in many or most of the pine woods. Come down to Angus, by me, where I am now, and it's very rare. There are only 3 sites recorded in Angus, 2 of which have been found by me, actually. But so it is so rare down here. It has this very distinct distribution up in the northeast, which it loves. It loves pine woods. Next, please. And these are the other orchids. That's a Twayblade, Neotia cordata, it's widespread but elusive, hard to spot. And I wanted a new photograph of it this year, but I could only find the leaves. But I find it quite often otherwise when I'm not looking. And I see it elsewhere in the Vice County quite often, but you go looking for it specifically and you can't find it. And also Dactyliza purpurella, northern marsh orchid again, which was growing around the entrance. There's less of it now. Dactyliza maculata, the heath spotted orchid, which is very common throughout the wood. I mean, it's a lovely orchid. Perhaps in the uplands, it's our commonest orchid, really, isn't it? Next, please. And then wood ants. Wood ants, they live here. They move around sometimes. You get a new colony and then an old one sort of dies down every few years. But the new one was finally came right against one of the paths this year. So very good for other people to be shown it. But it's not nice to have. They're very welcome, the wood ants. Next, please. An assortment of organisms here. Tiger beetles, very common on the paths, as are lizards, actually, but I didn't get a picture of them. Speckled wood is the commonest butterfly in the wood. That's one that has this funny distribution. It's widespread in Easter Ross. Come to Angus and Fife area, and it wasn't here at all until recently. It has just started appearing. I saw it in Brownie Wood last year, but and then further south it's commoner again, but it's beginning to close the gap between its 2 areas. Spiders on the bottom left make a lovely show. They can't give a species name. And then a painted lady butterfly. Next, please. We did moth trapping at the wood when Barbara was alive quite a lot. I'm afraid I've not moth trapped there for a while now. That's Barbara with the Skinner trap. Next, please. And here are just a few moths. The garden tiger scaring us away. Border beauty looking beautiful. Buff tip pretending to be a twig. Canary shouldered thorn pretending to be a leaf. Next, please. And this is an invertebrate you don't want. But I'm afraid there are a lot of them in the wood, ticks, and that is the danger reaction, of course, on the top there. That's the ring, suggesting Lyme disease, which means you've got to rush to the doctor to get some antibiotic. So you've got to watch out for ticks, particularly if you're working in the wood. I've had quite a lot from that wood. Next, please. And then we put in a scrape pond. We did 15 years ago, probably now, where we sort of debated, do we need planning permission to put in a scrape pond? And so I asked the local councillor who lived at the top of the wood. He said, don't ask. I asked the contractor who was going to do the job, and he said, don't ask. So I didn't ask. And we've now got a scrape pond, which the ducks are enjoying. Next, please. And it has grown up. This is more recently. And pondweed has arrived, which we didn't put in, but I think it's just ordinary potbouquet on Nathan's, actually, but it did arrive here, and it's all more grown up now, as these things do. Next, please. And lots of dragon and damselflies here. 7 species, I think, we've found, or rather Jonathan Willett helped us find. The emerald damselfly at the bottom is particularly common. The 4-spot chaser down on the other side, the big one, is also very common, but you see a lot of them. It's lovely. They're buzzing around in the summer. Lovely. Next, please. And I get visits from natural history groups. This is actually not you. This is the Tame Field Club, but I know botany groups been there. And there are lots of dragonfly larvae in the pond, and also toads, newts, and frogs, the usual sort of pondy stuff. But it's a nice pond. Of course, the water level is very high here because there's an impermeable layer of soil further down So you don't need to do anything. You just make a straight pond. It fills up and stays full. So you don't have to. There's no line or anything. You know, the wood is such that it just fills up. Next, please. This one is a bit less welcome. It's gorse. It's a beautiful plant, as it's proven, but gorse, lest with so many devices, would block all the paths in the wood very rapidly. So one of my main jobs in this wood is chopping gorse on the paths. It's not quite as widespread elsewhere in the wood, but along the paths, it loves it. I know it's nice, it flowers every month of the year, but it is an invasive native, like bracken and sometimes ivy. So next, please. So that is the last slide. So that's the wood probably looks like that at the moment, actually, doesn't it? It probably will. But that's it at sunset. So am I pleased we bought these woods? Yes, I am. Have they made me any money? No, they haven't. But they've given a lot of pleasure and interest, and it was a pretty crazy enterprise, but it's been absolutely great. And thank you for listening. That's my little talk.
Thank you very much, Brian. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, thank you. Yes, yes.
That was a wonderful talk, and I loved all the complete natural history, not just botany. It was just wonderful, and some beautiful photos. And I think we're all looking forward to getting out there and looking at bog asphodel and all these lovely flowers again. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome to visit Garrick Wood, which is near, of course, where well is. Absolutely essential to where well is.
Yeah. Well, I've never been to Garrick Wood. I would love to go.
We did have an outing there with the botany group, probably a long time ago. Rome, I remember. I can't remember. Is Rose still here? No, she is. Yes. I don't know. I can't remember who.
I don't remember when it was. It was quite a few years ago, I think.
Yeah. But you're also welcome to visit the other one. I mean, Carroll Wood is quite nice in its way, but that is a long drive, of course. And these other woods, of course, I don't. The naturalist, I have a lot of natural history visits to Brownie Wood because it's so handy.
Well, we had planned a residential weekend up in Caithness, but we've
really? Oh well.
Postponed it till next year. We decided that it was we wouldn't be able to do it this June.
No.
Maybe in 2022 we'll be able to visit the wood in Caithness.
Yeah. I mean, we're making a provisional list of outings for Dundee naturalists and also for the BSS, but subject to cancellation. I don't know how it's going to be. We might be having the rule of 6, of course, and then we've got the difficult decision of how to organise people to 6 people. It'll be quite difficult. But the other thing I would say is this coming summer, I love to get records, and I'm very grateful to some of you to botanical records, particularly at this moment when I can't get there as much. I was up there quite a lot between July and October. Otherwise, I can make an occasional essential visit. I can make a case that check the mice in my flat. That's the wood. I must linger, so I won't be going there for a while.
Well, we'll send you what records we have. I'm sure.
Yes, very welcome, Easter Rock, including common things. It's very welcome.
Will you get the records from the New Year plant hunt? Presumably they go into the BSVI database. And
they do. Yes. They come through. They haven't done so yet, but they will. Sure, they did last year and the year before. They come through on the distribution database. Yeah.
It was very good to see so many IBG members went out at New Year because the weather was very, very cold and icy. But it was wonderful to see on the interactive map that there were spots from botany group members up in Caithness and the Black Isle and round about Inverness. So that was great.
Very good. No, it was very icy here. I did go to a couple of sites at Dundee, and dearie me, I had trouble staying upright. And there wasn't much in flower actually, and compared with the way they've been in November when it is a flower. Because I've been doing funny little surveys of plants on walls, of plants in feet big, urban flora near here. And also I was looking at planted flower in all the Dundee Parks, nature reserves and cemeteries, which there are a lot actually. I mean, I visited 25 and there were more. I think it's remarkable how many sites there are in the city.